Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chakras and Cusswords. I'm Catherine. I am your host, and today we are diving into some numerology. I'm super excited because I think this is actually one of my first numerology episodes that I've had here on this podcast. So I'm kind of excited to get into it. I have my friend Rose, who I actually have met on TikTok. So give it up for TikTok and let's hope we don't get banned, right? And Rose, go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
Okay. So my name is Rose. For many years, I studied the metaphysical world, astrology and tarot, and then I got into numerology, and I discovered it by listening to Coast radio station, 6:40 a.m. with George Norrie. And I was kind of going through a dark night of the soul, and I was trying to find meaning in my life. And I stumbled upon Glynis Has Your Numbers. I believe she had just published her book, and I listened intently to her, and I found that that was my niche after I read her book. And I came to realize that numbers are tied to the frequencies and sounds of our names and the affirmations that we write out when we write our birthday. And as we write out our name and birthday throughout our lifetime, we are reaffirming our personality. But by pure coincidence, those numbers in our birthday and our name somehow ties to our astrology, and it all links together, and we can discover what our pros and cons are through astrology and numerology, so we can figure out what our life purpose is in this lifetime.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's and numerology is like, obviously it's been around for eons of decades, but
Mhm.
it seems like I feel like I'm noticing it more. I've always been intrigued by numbers and learning now like what the numbers mean, the meaning of like the names, and just like even when I talk about like sound energy or do sound energy, how certain numbers of the music or certain melodies are all related to some type of frequency that comes with numbers. It's just something that's really been kind of like opening my eyes on like how all this energy and like everything kind of like just meshes together.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
if we all had exposure to this as young
Mhm.
children, we would know what our purpose was. And Pythagoras is the father of numerology. And when he studied it, he brought it from Egypt to Greece. He simplified it, and it was so profound, and it had such an impact in the community that even elitists and affluent people were giving up their homes, their material possessions,
Mhm.
just to find meaning in their life and follow Pythagoras and learn music through numerology, learn literature through numerology, learn pretty much how to govern society through numerology in a sense.
Mhm. How do most people use numerology today? I mean, I guess unconsciously they're probably using it without like even knowing, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
but when the conscious state like is first learning about numerology, like what are they doing? Like what is the first things that they kind of like start to research and investigate?
Well, something you'll notice is you'll see repeating numbers that will call you
Mhm.
to it. So when I first discovered it, I kept seeing my birthday, and it was just irritating me, and I had to
Mhm.
research it. And
Mhm.
I found out that if you're seeing your birthday, you're on your right path. Or if you see a certain
Mhm.
number that has a significance to you,
Mhm.
and I would say your background, or maybe it's tied to a relative or a meaningful event, that means you're
Mhm.
on the right path. Or repeating numbers, angel
Mhm.
numbers.
Right. The angel
Mhm.
numbers are really big. And,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because a lot of people will be like, what does that mean? Like you get with the 1 1, you get the 3 3, the 5 5,
The 4-4 that you just
the
recently
four
posted.
four. Yes,
Uh-huh.
about the kids in the Amazon jungle. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of messaging with the
Mhm.
numbers. And And I think that when we start to become more like awaken in our spiritual essence is when we start to see them. Like a lot of times you hear, oh, that's when I'm starting to see the numbers, is kind of like when I'm on a spiritual journey or
Mhm.
stuff like that. And it kind of
Yes.
brings that curiosity to what do these numbers mean.
Mhm.
So what are like the numbers that people kind of use the most, or I guess you could say get readings on the most?
I would say their life purpose. So your life path number. So basically, you add each digit in your birthday, the month, the date, and the year, and you keep adding down until you get one base number.
Mhm,
So, for example, I was playing with numbers and I used Northwest, and she's born on 6/15/2013. So the
mhm,
base number of 2013, when I add it down, it's 2 plus 1 plus 3, it's 6.
mhm,
15 is a 6 on its own. The month is a 6 on its own. So she has triple six. So, and she's a Gemini,
mhm,
and Gemini rules communication.
mhm,
So she was definitely meant to be born that day because she's going to be like a socialite, I would say, in social
mhm,
media, right?
mhm, mhm,
And being born from a father that is also a Gemini. And when I was looking at her numbers, I saw that she adds down to a life path 9 because 6 times 3 is what,
mhm,
18, and then you get add it down, you get 9.
mhm,
So I feel 9 is the oldest number in numerology. It reflects back into the past often. It loves to research the history of humans. It likes to
mhm,
research the history of family as well. So I
mhm,
and because it's such an old soul, I feel like she's going to dissect and analyze what is going on with her family, and she's going to
mhm,
be very reflective, and she's going to try to improve her family, I feel. And
mhm,
number 6 in numerology loves to communicate peace and harmony amongst everyone. So I kind of see her in the future becoming a peer mediator amongst her
mhm,
siblings and between
mhm.
her mother and father as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting, especially because she is like so young and she's just kind of starting her journey as like you said, like a probably she's probably going to be like a socialite um for the most part, especially with her mom putting her in the media and
In
stuff.
the spotlight way too soon. And something I noticed,
Uh-huh.
so there's a positive and a negative to all numbers, just like a algebraic equation. There's a
Mhm.
positive integer, there's a negative integer, right? So there's a
Mhm.
positive 9, there's a negative in 9. And a negative about 9 is that because they're an old soul, they're exposed to growing up too fast. So
Mhm.
something happens to their childhood where their innocence is stripped of them.
Mhm.
And they often reflect where they, I would say, victimize themselves, and they ostracize themselves because they try to figure out, like, and not like they have a victim mentality, but I would
Mhm.
say that she would basically approach her mother and father and ask them, why did you force me to be an adult?
Mhm.
Why was my childhood taken away from me? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes the 9 is exposed too early in life
Mhm.
to sexual exposures. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying it could be physical. I could just
Right.
say maybe she saw something she wasn't supposed to see.
Supposed to, or maybe
Mhm.
even the way she sees her mom or something like that. For the because I know like a lot of people they talk about especially when it comes to numerology, like the areas of the life path number, which is
Mhm.
basically the area of like where you're supposed to kind of where your life, I guess you would say, kind of like leads to or moves towards or kind of
Mhm.
has that fluctuation. But what's the other ones that are pretty significant, like also than just the day that you were born too has a big almost like a story to it. And can you kind of explain like the actual birth date? Like, if because like for me, does it always, because sometimes I know for me, my life path number, it matches with my birth date. So I'm a life path 7. And then my birth date is 7. So I was wondering, does it always kind of correlate together, the birth date and the life path, or no?
In some instances, it does, or in some
Uh,
instances, it'll match your soul path number, which is tied to your name. Some people have a mixed bag of numerology,
mhm,
but if you have repeating numbers,
mhm,
that means that you were meant to practice as you were meant to follow a career that is meant for a life path 7. And
mhm,
it's strongly emphasized in this lifetime. So, for example, a double 7 I would say is a strategist, very intelligent, um, definitely knows how to sit back, reflect, and execute a plan, I would say. And they do it in such a diplomatic way that no one would see it coming. Like Princess Diana was a 7.
oh, okay.
Marilyn Monroe was a 7.
Oh,
And they're known for being very beautiful
mhm,
and for having this very quiet air about them. But when they're ready to deliver, it's very tactful and
mhm.
it just surprises you. You know,
Right,
they
right.
typically grow up, I would say, very quiet to themselves.
Mhm,
In some instances, they're forced to be by themselves, and that's what
mhm,
makes them so intelligent because they're observant and they're
mhm,
watching everyone around them as well.
mhm. Yeah, that's very interesting because I would say that I did grow up by myself for the most part because my
Mhm.
sister didn't, she wasn't born until I was 8. So I had the whole 8 years by
Yeah.
myself. And then and then I was also like one of those kids who was like I guess a latchkey kid. So I stayed home by myself like
Hmm.
until about 10 o'clock at night. Probably, in all my life until I moved out of my house at like 18. So so
Wow.
I definitely was by myself.
That's impressive because I was actually looking at Will Smith's numerology prior
Uh-huh.
to this. He's also a double 7, and
Ah,
he lived a life without a father, and
mm-hmm,
he had to do a lot on his own. And
mm-hmm,
because the 7 number and the 8 and the 9, they're at the back end of numerology, they tend to
mm-hmm.
be very intellectual, and people perceive them as independent, even though they need guidance,
Right.
and they tend to be neglected.
Mm-hmm,
And 7, 8, and 9 become very independent, and it's very challenging for them to ask for help. They
mm-hmm,
try to do everything on their own, unless they have other numbers that favor team effort. And I
mm-hmm,
would say people that like to collaborate, like a number 3 or a number 2, and like people that seek working with others. But
mm-hmm,
typically, the 7, 8, and 9 numbers love to work on their own.
mm. So what is it called for the birth date number? That's your destiny number or no? Is that something else?
I believe the destiny number and the life path number is the
It's the
same thing.
same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's different forms of numerology. I like
Mm-hmm.
to stick with Pythagorean numerology because it's so simplified. It's so easy to
Mm-hmm.
explain for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I break it down, it's easy to find numerology in the numbers. I can break down someone's chart and look at it and say, wow, this person might have Virgo in their chart. So when I
Right.
added Northwest down, I got the number 18, and
Mm-hmm.
that down to 9. And I kind of tie that to the tarot and the tree
Right.
of life. So the ninth placement in the tree of life is Virgo,
Mm-hmm.
the hermit. So I
Mm-hmm.
pulled up her chart, and then I saw that she had a Virgo moon.
That's so interesting
Yeah.
how it all just kind of correlates
Hmm.
together. And then let's see. So I am going to pull up Northwest chart right here. So I am using astroseek.com for anybody who is interested on what site it is. It is astroseek.com. And this is probably one of the first times that I've really looked at Northwest's chart in all honesty. And so first of all, her chart, so she is a Virgo moon, and it looks like she is also a Gemini, which I did not know she was a Gemini like her dad, which
Oh yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Because she kind of speaks without filter, like him,
Yeah.
doesn't she? And
Yeah.
she's, it's not that she does it on purpose. It's just her, who she is naturally. I feel like she inherited
Uh-huh.
a lot of Kanye's personality. And what's so interesting, even though, um,
And
even
she's
though
a life path
she's
and nine.
mostly with
Uh-huh.
Kim Kardashian, she was born year of the snake, just like her father.
Right, right. And she's a double Gemini because I was like, is her ascendant really Gemini too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And she
I,
has so many sixes in her numerology. So even the number 15 day, the birthday number, one
uh-huh.
plus five is six. That represents Gemini. It represents
Mhm,
communication in the tree of life. And if you look even at the tarot, it's also Gemini, the number
mhm,
six. So
mhm,
you can pull from different avenues. You can pull from astrology,
mhm,
you can pull from tarot, you can pull from numerology.
mhm,
And let's say if I didn't have a computer in front of me or my phone at my disposal, I could use numerology to kind of get an idea of how this person's astrology works and
mhm,
what influences them.
mhm. Yeah. It's yeah, I think it's interesting that she has a lot of similarities to her dad. Like, and and I think we kind of like see that
Mhm.
in the media of what we see, right? Just from like certain
Yeah.
of the like energies that she has. I'm kind of surprised that she had a Virgo moon, but not that surprised because I feel like there is almost like that similarity that she has kind of where she seems a little bit more standoffish versus maybe and like where her emotions are like they're like, oh, she has these things where she doesn't really like the paparazzi, which I mean, I don't know how I would feel being nine with people taking pictures of me every fucking day. You know what I mean? So it's like I could definitely see how she is just
Yeah.
going through a lot of emotional area where it seems like with the Virgo, it tends to kind of be a little bit more stable versus then and it's funny that it's in her fourth house.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel like she hungers for privacy secretly
Yeah.
because I'm also a life path 9
Mm-hmm.
and I love my alone time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also a Virgo. I'm a Virgo
Mm-hmm.
sun, I'm a Virgo ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe when I'm out, I'm very social, but as soon as I get home, I turn off my phone sometimes or I'll put it
Mm-hmm.
on sleep mode or
Mm-hmm.
I also put it on airplane mode before I go to bed because I don't want anyone to wake me up. And I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoy my alone time. But a 9 life path also loves to
Mm-hmm.
research and read and sit down and learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that she would enjoy higher learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what's also interesting too about her chart is that she has her Mars right
Mm.
there in her 12th, it looks like, and it's in the Gemini. So I wonder like how with it looks like right around with her Jupiter. So I wonder it looks like the Jupiter is still almost in the 12th house, right on the cusp of still being in
Mhm.
the 12th, or maybe it's in the first. But it looks like it's in the 12th. So I wonder if she is going to like have that spiritual essence to her that her dad has because her dad is really, he has his church and he's very in some ways on a different level than the Kardashians. I mean, I know the Kardashians speak of religion and they have their church that is their tax write-off, right?
Yes.
But like I feel like Kanye owns it more. Do you like if you were to ask me who I thought out of the two of them who has a church versus Chris or Kanye, like Kanye obviously I feel like has a passion for it more So
Mhm.
I'm wondering if North is going to have like that assertive streak when it comes to that 12th house, that conscious state of like her spiritual essence, kind of like her dad does too.
Yeah, I have a feeling she's going to lean on him. I kind of,
Mm-hmm.
when I was looking at Kim's numbers, because they were a little bit more rigid and constructive versus Northwest and her numbers, which were more free flowing and creative. And I even feel she's going to be very artistic like her father. And I don't see her numbers matching up with Kim's to where she's going to be all about business, or she's not even
Mm-hmm.
going to be pressured
Mm-hmm.
being she I feel she's not going to allow Kim Kardashian to pressure her into doing things that she doesn't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
especially with a Virgo moon. I kind of see her
Mm-hmm.
being nonchalant and dismissive, probably develop some sort of disassociation to where she detaches and just finds a way to escape from the spotlight and do her
Mm-hmm.
own thing, is what I imagine her doing later
And
on.
kind of like saying, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. She might have, and it's interesting that in her 10th house, which a lot of people consider like one of the business houses, and then the career house with also her second house, she has, well, in her 10th house, and then she has, but in her 10th house, it looks like she has her Chiron right here, which I wonder if there's going to be some conflict when it comes to areas of like hurt or healing somewhere tied into there with
I
the
kind of
Pisces.
Yeah, I see her. I do see her rebelling at home in the
Mm-hmm.
future.
Mm-hmm.
I even see her soul number is 11.
Yeah.
11 is linked to justice, it's linked to Libra.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And her
and
mom's a Libra, right?
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when I looked at her soul number, when you add 11 down, you get 2.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 is a number, it's the beginning number of business. It's when we first initiate business. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
affirmation of business. It's when we write our plans down in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. But in order to initiate that, a life path 2 or someone with
Mm-hmm.
like a 2 in numerology
Yeah.
teaches everyone around them how to, I would say, love through business, compromise with each other to get that business started.
Right.
So I feel where her mom is going to be aggressive, she's going to be at a slower pace. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like she's going to want to push things right away. She's going to try and make sure that everyone around her is
Mm-hmm.
comfortable
Yeah.
versus trying to aggressively push something out.
Mm-hmm. And then right here, you can see that actually Jupiter is in her first, not her 12th. And her sun sign is right there,
Mhm.
right on like the ascendant line. But what I think is also kind of very interesting about her Jupiter being in her first, it makes me feel like she's going to want to expand her own identity. Like
Mhm.
maybe she's going to do like, I want to be a Kardashian.
Yes, I see her breaking apart from them. I see her claiming more of her dad and being like, I'm creative on my own.
Right.
I'm I'm
I
not
don't
like
I don't need your guys' gimmicks.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
her numerology it screams creativity and originality. It does. She
Mhm.
also has a 3 somewhere, and threes love to be creative. They like to
Mhm.
be inventive when it comes to
Mhm.
artistry.
Mhm.
So whether she goes into music or clothing design like her father or
Mhm.
architecture, she would be fabulous. And it
Mhm.
would
Yeah.
actually be her gifts, not anything that her mother paid for. And I
Mhm.
feel she's going to try to prove herself to
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
something. I would say she would, even with a 9 life path, she would say, I'm better than my parents. I'm not going to be like social hungry, or I'm not going to uh,
Speak.
speak out a term without filters. And I feel like she's going to develop her own personality. I see her superseding her parents,
Mhm.
hopefully, if they guide her correctly and they don't continue to expose her and
Mhm.
push her into things that I don't feel she would want to do. Because with the Virgo moon,
Mhm.
I feel like she would rather be introverted and being at home and doing things that children are doing versus
Yeah.
pushed into something that an adult is doing for a
Right.
career, you know.
Right. I will say I do like how the second house is looking for her with the Venus and the Mercury together
Mhm.
right there in Cancer. I think for like for a woman, you know, that's an amazing area to have where she's going to be able to communicate her feminine abilities and also have a sense about her where she's going to be able to take that emotions that she's feeling and be able to express them equally and also have a direct almost like a direct understanding of her own feminine nature. So hopefully it's not something that seems to be almost like forced on her, that it is something that she can definitely do at her own speed, at her own pace, and create an energy that is significant. I also think that it's interesting that it seems like when we are looking at her area of partnerships, that it with her seventh house, that she does have Pluto in there. And it makes me wonder like what's what's going to come with the Pluto energy in that space. Is there going to be like a disconnect where she's like, I, you know, and it is in the area of the, I believe the Capricorn. So what's going to make that area where it's like, I'm not sure if I agree like with what is going on with maybe career and also with maybe her family unit coming back opposing her feminine state. So that's very interesting to me.
I
I
feel like
think,
she's going to have challenges when it comes to her
yeah.
family trying to get into her business.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a look at Mr. Yeezy.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. Okay, so we have Kanye West,
Mhm.
and he was he's a Gemini sun, and he's a life path 11 as well.
Mhm.
And let's see what's also interesting about Mr. Kanye. Oh, well, the
And
life path 11, can you explain that a little bit? Because that's considered a master number because once they get up to 9 is when it stops, right?
uh-huh. But
And
if you're
then,
adding down, you're supposed to add all the way down so you get one digit. But while
uh-huh,
you're adding down, if you get double digits, that's
uh-huh.
considered a master number.
Mm,
So to me personally, I feel master number starts at 11 and then it ends at 44.
mm,
And master number 11 or 22 or 33 or 44
mm-hmm,
will say it's like having that digit of one, but it's
mm-hmm,
double the power of one.
mm-hmm,
So you can be a double one energy, or you can add 11 down and get two. You can be a one today or a two tomorrow. So it's someone that can
mm-hmm,
manifest both those energies,
mm-hmm,
but they also have more of a karma in this lifetime. So something wasn't completed in their last lifetime where they are given the power to manifest it in this lifetime with that master number.
So is it almost like they're going back? They're going back to kind of, and he's,
To make up for something. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So I would say that maybe he was inventive and ingenuitive in a past life. And
Okay.
with that 11, I would say it was within this lifetime for him to finally invent something, to
Uh-huh.
present something to the world.
Uh-huh.
It was something that was probably taken from him in a past life. And in this lifetime, he was able to see it through.
Uh-huh. And it looks a little like uncertain of his birth time to see the house placements, but he
That's
also
so
had
interesting. I didn't know his moon was in Pisces. Isn't that like the house of illusions and, and
mm-hmm.
delusions?
And yeah, illusion delusions and and he has, he has his moon in Pisces, but also I think too that's like his emotional state with like his spiritual
Mhm.
self, because I think he is in some ways very spiritual, but he's also, I don't know.
He takes
He's
it to another level.
he's a very hard one to, like, every time I feel like I somewhat figure him out or somewhat kind of can understand maybe his logic, or I can maybe say, oh, well, it's because of this or it's because of that. Then he does
Mhm.
something else that's like just completely dissolved the first notion that I had. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And definitely RIP Kanye.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I miss the old Kanye for sure.
I think a lot of people miss the whole Kanye. It's like, can you just hold yourself together for a little bit? But I
And
don't
it's so
know.
interesting that even though he's a Gemini and
Hmm.
it's ruled by Mercury, his
Yeah.
Mercury placement is in Taurus, which is the throat chakra.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's stubbornness with his communication, I would say, and
Hmm.
it shows.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at his numerology, his attitude number is 5. So I get
Mm.
5 from adding just 8 to June,
Okay.
and you get the number 14.
Hmm.
And when I think of 14, I think of temperance in the tarot. I think of Sagittarius. So there's
Okay.
probably something up with his Mars. I mean, not Mars. Is it Jupiter?
Uh-huh.
There's something going on with his Jupiter, possibly that has to do with Sagittarius. Um, and then,
It's literally opposing it.
wow, that's so
Mhm.
interesting that it shows
Yeah.
that even with the numerology. And then
Mhm.
you add it down, you get,
And he has his Neptune in retrograde, which is something that makes me wonder, like, since he does have like a lot of the mental health and um issues, or maybe speaking on such a broader area, if that's just really like his main battle is that Neptune.
yeah, because sometimes Sagittarius, when it's low vibes, it speaks
Hmm.
without filters and
Yeah,
aggressively
very, yeah,
when
very.
it's not in a positive light, I would say. And then
Hmm.
if you add it down, 1 + 4 is 5. And to me, when I think of 5, I think of Taurus, because Taurus in the tarot in the tree of life is
Hmm.
number 5. It's the Hierophant. And then I see that he has a stellium in Taurus.
Hmm. He does, yeah.
Mhm.
And which is interesting because I think Kanye does have a lot of that stellium energy that we see um with him. Like, there's a lot of times I feel like some of the stuff that happens in the media or happens with him is basically that Taurus energy, because I feel like the Gemini might in some ways like, I guess you could say, well, it's so hard to tell because in all honesty, like, who really knows what the hell is going on with him? But but it seems like the Taurus energy is just that place where it will not like change. Like, it just will not. And the fact that he has his Venus in Taurus with his Chiron, it makes me feel like that's that energy
Mhm.
that is almost going to hold him back besides the Neptune.
It's very obsessive, I feel,
Yeah.
because an excess amount of Taurus is like,
Hmm.
I
Too
feel like
much.
Venus in Taurus, from what I've learned, I believe Chris Brown has Venus in Taurus. And look what happened with him and Rihanna.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And he's
I
a
believe,
cycle of a hot mess, like,
yeah,
still to this day. Like,
yeah.
he doesn't
And
change.
and
Yeah.
he even sings about it in one of his lyrics where he's like,
Hmm.
yeah, Venus and Taurus, I own you. And they say that often. I own you. I
Uh,
I joked around often
right.
with an ex, even though I adore him. He was a Taurus. When we first met, he said he was going to own me. And it's just, I thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah.
And I would just joke around and tell him, well, I own you.
Yeah.
But
And
it's very possessive because it rules the material world. It's the
mm-hmm,
child in
mm-hmm,
astrology, because if you count it down, one is the masculine, two is the feminine, three is the child. And what do children do with their things? They don't like to share them, they like to possess them. And I feel like he's an obsessive lover, especially when it came to Kim Kardashian. I
mm-hmm.
really feel there was
Yeah.
um, such a disconnect with him learning to let go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I still sense it, I feel.
And then just to make it spicy, he has his Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mars, Venus, Mercury, and his Chiron
Yeah.
all in Taurus. So that's a lot of like rooted energy that is just stuck. It just
Yes.
does not want to change, does not want to move. Definitely I could see, it's funny because you never really hear like them talking about him being um like narcissistic, but I could see him being like very, very dominant, where like I feel like
Mhm.
there's some things that they're like, of course, leaving out, like we only know what they share with us, right? But I do think that there were times that he was probably like very hurtful with his words, but we'll never really know.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, when I'm looking at his numbers, he has with the attitude number 5, and let me look at the other numbers I wrote down. So he has a 2, a 5, an 8, a 9, another 8. So workaholic, I would say. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but just the 5 alone, when
Mm-hmm.
we have an odd number like 1, 5, and 7,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can be very obsessive with what we love. We
Mm-hmm.
love intellectual stimulation. I have a 5 as well. I have a double 5. Um, and we're always looking for the next thing because we're easily bored, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Mm-hmm.
1, 5, and 7s are always looking for intellectual stimulation in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we love to multitask. We like to challenge ourselves when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to our intellect. But sometimes it can be all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and without proper grounding,
Mm-hmm.
maybe getting some sun, get a sound bath or something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
meditate. Without doing those sort
Right.
of activities, you're going to lose yourself
Yeah.
with,
And
um, with that type of numerology, I would say.
mm-hmm. And then right here with the Saturn and Leo, which is actually one of my placements. Yeah. So I know like that's a very difficult, you know, area to have, because I feel like Saturn is such a hard energy to begin
Mhm.
with, like very constructive. And then you have Leo, that's also very dominant and very like almost like
Competitive.
tight ship. Yeah. That it
Com-
just feels like,
Mhm.
he's yearning for the responsibilities. And he wants all the responsibilities. He wants all the leadership. And then especially to have it almost, where he's at right now,
Mhm.
I'm sure this right here, and then with the new current alignment of the Pisces,
Mhm.
right, with his Saturn, and having it now with Pisces is probably just something that is really making him want to take this leadership back.
Yeah. And then the first deacon of Leo is Saturn in Leo. It's
Mhm,
it's very competitive, but like playful competitive, where
mhm,
they overdo it sometimes.
mhm,
They
mhm.
do it for fun, but other people don't see it that way, especially
Yeah,
when you keep pushing for it and other
yeah.
people want to take a break. And I know this well because I have a brother that's a Leo and he loves
Mhm,
competition.
mhm.
And sometimes we all want to mellow out and zone out, and he just keeps picking at it. And I just let him know, you
Yeah,
won. Don't
yeah.
worry.
It's
Whatever.
Yeah,
I'll call it a day. I'll throw in the towel. You won. You get your trophy as long as I have my peace. Be quiet.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I think, Kanye's chart is that chart, and just Kanye altogether is just that chart that always kind of like fascinates me. Like I remember the first few times, well, the fact that, his birth time is very unknown, and there's speculation of, I don't really like to guess people's birth times. I've seen other astrologers or people who are in astrology try to guess people's birth times, and I'm just like, if I don't know what it is, I don't want to speculate, but I think like with him, it's his charts just to me very like kind of different. And I don't know if that's because he is the life path number, because you usually see, I mean, he is majority of air, which makes me feel like he does have a lot of that chaotic energy. But then he also, is very like smart and he's
Very, very
very,
smart.
yeah, like I think he's smart in the things that he's smart in, and then the other things, I don't think it's because he's dumb. I think he just doesn't care, like that he might
Very
have. Oh,
unapologetic, I would say.
yeah.
But we
Yeah.
can guess also with numerology.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like looking at it. I see, okay, master number 11. When I'm
Mhm.
looking at the tree of life, that could be Libra. I add down it to two. Two in numerology represents the moon, so he might have like some water sign placement as an
Mm,
ascendant.
mm,
I his birthday number is 8, and I think of the strength card in and Leo in the tree of
mhm.
life. So there's possibly a Leo ascendant. We can only speculate.
Right.
Um, but I would say with a double 8 in his chart,
Mm-hmm.
I thought Kim Kardashian was a workaholic with 3 placements and 4, but
Mm-hmm.
the double 8 makes you an excessive workaholic. And a lot of times, because you're working so much
Uh-huh.
as an 8, from what I've noticed, they deprive their family of time. They
Uh,
work more versus interacting with the people that they love. And a lot of times they end up divorced because they're chasing an independent career so that they
uh-huh.
can potentially have freedom, but they don't know how to schedule themselves to where they have a moderation of work, life,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
downtime.
So,
So,
so yeah. So
so
I
from,
definitely see that. Yeah.
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 So from looking at his numbers, if I didn't know him, I would say be careful not to get divorced by overworking yourself.
Yeah. That's probably what happened. It sounds like there was also a real disconnect between the two of them. And then the life path 11, like what makes 11 so special? What makes them a master number?
Okay, so just the number 1 on its own is
Uh-huh.
inventive. They know how to initiate and start projects,
Mm,
or they're entrepreneurs. Like
mm-hmm,
if you listen to a 1, just the 1 alone, and they come up with an idea, I would listen to them.
mm-hmm,
If they tell you, let's start a business in, for example, I'll give you an example. My mom is a triple 1,
mm-hmm,
and we were driving up the hill in Tijuana one day, and we saw a little OXXO, which is like the 7-Eleven of TJ.
mm-hmm,
And it was on the right hand side before we drive up the hill into my uncle's property. And she said that little patch of land was empty. And I told
mm-hmm,
your uncle to open a market there, and someone did it. And he told me it was a dumb idea.
mm,
But oftentimes, because the 1 is very naive
mm-hmm,
and is not perceived as intelligent at
mm-hmm,
times, people don't take them serious. But with the double 1, you would be taken more serious, because if you add down a 2, you know how to approach people through a business
mm-hmm,
mindset. Because
mm-hmm,
2, 4, and 8, the numbers 2, 4, and 8 are here for business. They're here to make money. So
mm-hmm,
someone with a double 1 and that channels that number 2 knows
mm-hmm,
how to speak in a loving way to those around them, where everyone gets a piece of the pie, because I don't feel he's the type of person that would want to take as
Mhm.
much from those that work under him,
Yeah.
versus other people around him, I would say.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
would say that he would try to share a piece of the pie as a number
Share.
two.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of like share it with the collective.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's why, like, before he got into so much trouble with like the anti-Semitic statements, and
Mhm.
just him always being on some kind of weird
Oh yeah.
spiral, some kind of weird spiral, if that's why he was so successful, and because like everybody loved Yeezys, the shoes,
Mhm.
and everybody really saw him as a visionary. And I was actually just listening to a podcast, which was interesting because they were talking about, in all honesty, like the whole Skims with the Yeezys made sense because it was like Kanye was producing the shoes, the color tones of the shoes, the ideas for the shoes. And then he was feeding that vision back into Kim and basically picking, the color shades. So it was like you knew you could get your Skims and then your Yeezys, and then you
Mhm.
had like your whole kind of ensemble that was basically generated from Kanye, not necessarily Kim, because she was the one who was just the face of the label, but he was actually the one who was making it all kind of tie in.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see,
He was
what's
looking
going
out for her
who's
in a
looking at,
sense.
yeah, who's looking
Mhm.
out for her. And I think a lot of it had to do with, because he probably, still cared about her a lot. And then also because um of the vision, of the vision of the shoes. I think a lot of it also had to do with that workaholic aspect of him. So let's take a look at Kim Kardashian's chart real quick.
Oh, this will be interesting.
Yeah, and she is a master number 2. So how many master numbers are there? There's 11, there's 22, and then there's 33, right?
And 44.
Oh, and 44.
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. So,
Because if you go up and let's say you get a double
uh-huh.
55, you're
Mm-hmm.
back at 1, so it doesn't
Okay.
count.
Okay.
Because master number 11 is already double energy 1.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I'm looking at her chart,
Uh-huh.
her numerology, so you said master number 22, but she adds down to a 4.
Yes.
And
Master.
then what's interesting, I specialize in something called reverse numerology. It's something I've been practicing. So
Mm-hmm.
when I added her numbers down, I got 49 before I got
Oh,
uh,
that's cool.
and then I take the 9, the bigger integer, and I
Uh-huh.
take the 4 away and I get 5, and I call that a karmic number.
Oh,
So her karma in this lifetime, I would say, is that she's too busy. She's all over
yeah.
the place. She's excessively doing it in a sense. So her
Yeah.
karma is to learn how to slow it down.
Because this master numbers saying that she has to kind of like relearn, or she's here for more obstacles, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I could see that. And she has more than one 4. So I see 4 as the miser. So if you want to find a good picture of someone that's no offense to her, but greedy, um, you can look at like a stack of tarot cards and pull out the 4 of Pentacles. It's someone that's holding on to his money, his coins, and he feels like if he lets go of them, he's going to lose them.
Yeah.
So maybe a placement of 1 4 is fine, but if it's excessively there, like in her chart, it's her attitude number
Mm-hmm.
plus her life path number. It could be someone that is excessively frugal, maybe
Uh-huh.
not with with her spending for things that she likes, but maybe, for example, when in business, maybe she's not paying the people below her that are helping her
Right.
with her business. Maybe
And
she's
that's,
not paying them a fair wage, kind of like what
yeah.
happened with her and that guy with the, what was it,
Kim
Kimoji?
Kardashian ruined my life.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
She ruined when he was like outside with a sign. And supposedly it was all about the Kim emoji,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that she took the money from the Kim emoji and he came up with the idea, but he was in good trust with her
Mhm.
and Chris. And it sounds like it was like a kind of like a verbal contract. And then next thing you know, she basically like stole his idea and was like, we don't need you. But
Yeah.
she promised like she would work with him. So definitely, I definitely see that that area of greed. And I feel like that's kind of the family's legacy, like the family's downfall is the greediness, like when we
Definitely.
is,
Mhm.
if maybe they weren't so fucking greedy, then people would be able to like appreciate the fact that they came with very little ish, that they weren't necessarily talented, but they had some type of charisma where they were able to create a following and people who enjoyed watching them and continued to be, successful. But just the greediness that ties in, and you hear, and it's not like this
Mhm.
was the first person to sue the Kardashians. Like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
multiple people who, have sued them. They've had all those damn infomercial like type products, like they're the masters of creating businesses that go dry. Like just stop. Like it's not like the Kardashians are like going to be the family name of a long-term business. Like they're definitely not going to be the fucking Gucci's.
No,
Like
definitely not.
everything is just
Mhm.
falls, like it lasts a couple years. So like Kylie Cosmetics is I think struggling now, and whatever businesses that they do have, we'll see if the tequila, lasts the long run or they just might get bored of 818 or who knows, but I think Skims is probably Kim is holding on to that thing by the fucking grit of her teeth because that's like something that she's done and she hasn't really had, she had the makeup. There's no more makeup anymore. It's just like, okay. She just has to think of new ideas to sell people, but none of them are really truly her identity, and
Mhm.
that so it's interesting. Are 22s known for being like workaholics, the master number, or not really?
Yes, they're
Oh,
known
they
for,
are.
and they
Okay.
love building businesses.
And
But
okay.
their karma is to learn how to show people,
Uh-huh.
how to teach people how to establish businesses and build something from the bottom up.
Oh, that's
It's kind
interesting.
of like the even numbers, they're here for business, but they're
Right.
also here to show others how to establish business, how to cooperate with others in order to
Uh-huh.
run a successful business. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
not showing others something, how you got yourself started, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not contributing to society in a sense, it's
Mm-hmm.
bad karma. It comes
Okay.
back in a negative sense.
Mm.
So the even numbers are supposed to be philanthropists in a sense. They're
Okay.
supposed to like a master number 22 is a builder. So numerology, one is the masculine energy, two is the woman, three is
Mm-hmm.
the child, four is the house, the
Mm-hmm.
foundation that protects the man, the woman, the child, the
Mm-hmm.
society in a sense. It's
Okay.
supposed to be a protective energy.
Uh,
But if you're establishing businesses and not protecting the people that are within your business,
uh-huh.
then how are you going to succeed? It's bad karma.
Right. Yeah.
Like you said, the guy with the Kim emojis, she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't looking out for him. and eventually that karma will catch up with her.
Mm-hmm. And with Kim's birth chart, there's some obviously she has some transits that and some aspects that are definitely working for her in her benefit. She is a Libra sun.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Sagittarius ascendant. Sagittariuses are known for, creating that outward type motion, that outward energy.
Mm-hmm.
And also I feel like Sagittarius is, because they have Jupiter as the ruler, tends to be kind of like they're kind of like lucky, like they're the ones who like get away with shit, like and I feel like when you have that type of energy where you could just kind of like get away with something,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of has to be like you kind of have to be a little bit karmic, about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because we come into this energy space where it's like, sure, I would love to be able to eat like a whole bag of potato chips every day of my life and not, gain weight, like who are those lucky people? But in most of the time, even though you get away with it for the moment and you hit the scale and it's
Mm-hmm.
like no weight's gained, but then next thing you know, like you have coronary artery disease, you need a cabbage, or you need to have like some type of heart surgery. So I feel like they have this ability to like get away with shit, but they also have to have that like same karmic space or that same karmic
Mm-hmm.
mindset where they're like, yeah, I could get away with this, but should I? Like about them. And I feel like that is something that might be like it affects her in some ways where
Mm-hmm.
she's like, yeah, I could get away with it, so I will.
Oh yeah, and when we use astrology and numerology, it's not here so we can one up people
Right.
or uh
Yeah.
or squish someone down on the way up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
here so we can see our karmic lessons and
Mm-hmm.
we can, I would say, reincarnate into a better life in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. So we can graduate in the school of life.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're doing that, we're kind of helping those around us in a
Mm-hmm.
sense to better understand themselves
Mm-hmm.
and to pick up the vibration
Mm-hmm.
of society, the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. And what's also interesting with her, for the most part, is like her Lilith is also um, in her 10th house,
Uh-huh.
right around her sun. And also it is in that area where it's like right, kind of like she is known for that dark energy, that dark feminine, when you think about like how she became famous, like the scandal of the sex tape. Was it released purposely? Was it an accident?
Mm-hmm.
Like how did this all happen? And oops, and it's like in Libra, like, and it kind of makes you like think, okay, I see. You're really kind of testing that area of boundaries, especially with that energy with the Pluto. So it is like she does have that dark space about her, that shadowy element where really it is a part of her and a part
Mm-hmm.
of like how she got here in her career as well, like who she is for a reason. um I think it's interesting that her moon is Pisces,
Like Kanye.
like Kanye. Yes, the same two moon
uh,
signs. And then
and
also her moon is 28 degrees in Pisces, and then her sun is 28
mm,
degrees Libra, which a lot of people consider that a fame degree. And then she has her Lilith in 22 degrees in her career house.
mhm. And what's interesting is her Venus is oh, it's sorry, I thought it was Scorpio, but I see it's Virgo. But well, her Mercury is Scorpio, communication, the way we communicate with
Yeah.
others. So it must be a very sexual energy with Scorpio and Mercury when it
Oh
comes to
yeah.
communication, right?
And it's in the 11th house, which is kind of like that space where people see her, like the collective sees her for the most
Mm.
part, especially with uh with the Mercury.
Oh yeah, and I feel 11th house, Aquarius energy is kind of like that. I don't care what you think of
Mhm,
me. I'm going to do what I want to do.
mhm,
I
mhm,
don't, it's very like, well, I'm going to do what is taboo because it makes me feel good.
mhm,
And I don't care if it's taboo to you, but
mhm.
Aquarius energy loves to dabble in what is taboo as something very normal,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
And with that Mercury in Scorpio, I would say that taboo that is communicated could be
Mhm,
very sexual.
mhm. Yeah.
And I'm trying to
It's
see if there's anything that connects to numerology to see, but I see definitely a double four. I see a three in her birthday number.
uh-huh.
So I would say she definitely always desired to be in the spotlight.
Yeah. And and I think that kind of shows like too with her um Neptune right around with still, it looks like it's still in
Mhm.
her first house, but it's in the element of the Sag. So it makes
Mhm.
me think that she always was kind of like on that, you know, big dream focus, that big dream energy, and
Mhm.
especially with her Mars in her 12th house, that expansion was kind of like that step. Like she was very assertive with it. Like she was kind of like, you know, like I always feel like Courtney, in all honesty, is probably like the better businesswoman
Yes.
out of the
Uh,
group. But I feel like maybe she didn't want to necessarily be famous, but Kim was like, I'm going to be famous, and very assertive about it. Like she had
mhm.
that dream big energy where she just, that was her. Like that was her, where she was like, I'm going to do it. And you guys are here for the ride. And then she has her mom, who's a Scorpio, who's
Mhm.
totally like mama manager.
Oh yeah, and taking advantage of all of
Yeah,
them.
all
Yeah.
of them, all of them. Yes.
Even little Northwest,
Even
I
little
would say.
Northwest.
Yeah.
So what correlations do you see in Kim's chart with Northwest? And let me see if I can pull their charts up kind of close together with the numerology, because you're saying there was some areas where it was kind of like they had a lot of constriction together, or they kind of
Mhm.
had a lot of
I would say, so Kim's numerology, she has a double four, she has one three. Let me see. I see a Scorpio influence when I look at her numerology. Okay, and I'm looking at her personality number, five. And then let's see, soul, where's her soul number? But from what I see with just the double four
uh-huh.
and the five and the three, I would say that she's obsessed with business. She's obsessed with developing a routine that's constantly consistent, like no breaks, right? But then I look at Northwest and her numerology is just so creative and flexible. There's only maybe one even number and that's it. So I don't feel like she's a person that would like routine. And with the Virgo moon and knowing myself as a Virgo, and if I keep getting pushed into a corner and I keep being told what to do, I'm not going to do it.
Really?
So I sense they're going to clash, especially because she's going to feel the environment is too strict for her.
Yeah.
It
And
probably will hinder her creativity.
right. And it's funny, it's like some people, because you hear like
Mhm.
people talk about you hear like people talk about how they like watching Northwest's TikToks, and she's
Mhm.
basically just making fun of Kim, like on
Yeah.
the TikToks, and people are like, I love it, because she's like giving Kim a hard time. And I feel like you already see that.
Yeah, because I don't think she wants to be in the spotlight. I think she's just doing it to go along with it, you
Right.
know? Um,
Yeah.
but I see her developing into this woman that is going
Mhm.
to value her alone time, would
Yeah.
desire to be creative, whether it's through music or
Mhm.
art. I kind of see her going into fashion like her father because of the fact
Mm.
that she's
She's
born in the
very.
year of the snake, and the year of
Mhm.
the snake is ruled by Taurus energy as well.
Okay.
So I feel like that Taurus energy is really into the material things, into
Yeah.
the senses, into how you feel with your clothes on, and the taste of food. It's that very
Uh-huh.
like Taurus essence, you know? So I see her wanting to do something creatively with her father, maybe
Mhm.
collab with him in the future when it comes to fashion or even
Mhm.
music, you know?
Yeah. That's very interesting. Well, that was fun going through their charts and everything. So
Mhm.
thank you. Thank you. So what three tips would you give somebody who is just wanting to kind of learn about numerology, and like where do they start? Like they're like, I've always been fascinated, but I don't know where to start.
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite book, and I
Uh,
still go through it. It's Glynis Has Your Number. I took the cover off, but you can tell I put like sticky notes all over this thing.
uh-huh.
And I took notes as I went along. I put sticky notes in there and I did my numerology, and
Yeah.
I've had it for years, and I love this book because it's just the simplest way of explaining numerology.
Uh,
I
yeah.
mean, I bought it used and I've been using it for years. And sometimes I still read it as a refresher. And it even has affirmations for you. So if you'd like to remove a block that
Uh-huh.
is attached to your life path or your soul number, you can find the
Mhm.
affirmations in here and start
Mm,
writing them. And
mhm.
you can start, you know, I
Getting.
would say, yeah, like, how would I say this? Like, rewiring your mind
Mhm.
so that you are growing beyond your life purpose.
Mm, that's cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And everybody, thank you for listening. How can everybody find you? Because I know you have a lot of stuff. You have like an Etsy store and you got readings going on. So, how can everybody find you?
On Etsy, I'm on Etsy is so if you first you have to select the search Etsy shop before you type in my name, and it's Cora del Sol by Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And just and you'll see my selection. I have one question readings, I have numerology chart, and then I also have yearly cycle if you just want to know what the energy is for this year. And you can just do one question at a time, or I even have angel number listing. And I also, and sometimes because I'm working full time, it does take about a week or two to get to me. You can message me to see if I'm available day of. If not, I have two friends on there that are amazing tarot readers. My friend Priscilla and my friend Anthony are also listed on there, and they know a little bit about numerology and tarot and so forth. And I read with them as well and collaborate with them.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So, thank you everybody for listening to Chakras and Cusswords. Please comment, like, and share this podcast to your friends, and have an amazing day.
Thank you for having me on.